Can this be the best fully electric compact SUV currently available on the market? Let us look into that. This is the Zeekr X, and this is my full review. Welcome to It's Only Electric. Let's start. Zeekr is a brand within the Geely Corporation. That means that this car shares platform with Volvo EX30, Smart #1 and Smart #3. Compared to the EX30, it is actually 20 centimeters longer, so the total length is 4.4 meters with a wheelbase of 2.75. It weighs 1,950 kilograms. Between the wheels there is a battery pack, and this is the long-range version, which means that it's equipped with a NMC pack with a gross capacity of 69 kilowatt hours and a net capacity of 64. That gives us a total range, according to the WLTP cycle, of 425 kilometers. This is the highest trim level, called Privilege, which means that you get a four-wheel drive version putting out 428 horsepower, 315 kilowatts, or 542 newton meters of torque. So it's powerful. 0 to 100 in 3.8 seconds, a top speed of 180 kilometers per hour. The design as such is a lot bolder than you find in the siblings, for instance the EX30, and you can tell by looking at the exterior. But there is a lot of similarities. One example is the frameless side view mirrors. Seems to be a heritage from the Polestar brand. The boldness continues, and I'm not talking about bold as in no hair, I'm talking about bold as in brave. Look at these flush handles, looks really good, helps the airflow passing by without adding to the drag coefficient. The boldness in this is that they actually fold in instead of folding out. You put in your fingers and it pushes out the door. Very bold. And impossible not to notice the signature sound. The signature sound is a sound that plays when you lock or unlock the car, or just approach it with the key in your pocket. In case you wanted to have a dance-off competition with your kids 6 a.m. every morning in front of your neighbors, or you can just turn it off. To the next two bold things, the door trims built in underneath the door. This means that they are so bold and that they trust their manufacturing process so much that they don't expect any misalignments in the doors. That's really bold. The last part is this. This is kind of a patchwork due to the charge port. So the engineers may have thought like, we don't have a good solution, and to be honest, we are bold, so we don't care. We create a patchwork. When talking about the patchwork and the charge port, the charging delivers 22 kilowatts of AC charging, home charging, three-phase support. When it comes to DC charging, that's the fast charging, 150 kilowatts of top speed, 10 to 80% should take around 30 minutes. The Privilege version comes with 20-inch wheels with Continental Contact 6 tires, 245/45 all around. The frontal design with a very shaped bonnet, actually hiding a small frunk with 15 liters of space. This is a parking camera for the 360 view. Underneath that, a closed grille, as in almost all EVs nowadays, and a cover for the frontal-facing radar. As you see here, air intakes redirecting the airflow into the wheel arches. Separated headlight units, so this is the main headlight unit and this is the daylight running lights. The rear design of the Zeekr X starts at the top with a big air spoiler. On top of that, brake lights. This, by the way, is the smallest windshield wiper I have ever seen in my life. Underneath that you have the light bar going through the whole rear end of the car. Also brings you a lot of animations together with the sounds. Do you like this kind of stuff? Do you like when the car communicates to you with sounds and animations? Let me know in the comments below. The Zeekr logotype lights up only when stationary, at least here in Europe, because it's not okay to have white lighting towards the rear. To open the tailgate, you press this hidden button. I wonder how this will survive the Swedish winter. Let us see about that. But if I press that, it engages the powered liftgate. Total storage capacity, 326 liters. This one is possible to lock into that place, so there is no mechanics to lift it up automatically. Underneath this, you have some extra storage. That's included in this 326 liters, but you can easily store 1 or 2 charge cables at this location. When it comes to the practical aspects, there is 4 storage hooks. There is no 12 volt or USB outlet here for powering your things, but there is foldable seats. In this case, 40 and 60. There's no loading tunnel or ski latch for loading longer things, unfortunately. So let's have a look at the interior, and this is where this car really outshines the competition, especially the Volvo EX30. I'm gonna tell you why. But let's start closing the door. Frameless doors in this case, and it's suffering from some bad vibration when closing the door. That's not that premium. Otherwise, it's really great. Soft touch almost everywhere compared to the Volvo EX30 that has hard plastics in most places. The built-in ambient lighting, the digital air ventilations, everything is really well put together and gives you a premium feel. The Alcantara inlays here from the B pillars all the way up to the roof liner. All the pillars is covered in Alcantara. Gives a really premium feel, and small things like the Zeekr's own sunglass holder and a holding bar here at the passenger side lifts the cabin even up a notch. And the Privilege version compared to the standard long-range version brings 4-wheel drive, bigger wheels, so 20-inch rims instead of 19-inch rims. It also brings ventilated and massage seats at the front on top of the heated seats that's standard, and also the Yamaha sound system. And that's an impressive piece of sound system for such a small car. Probably the best sound system for this class of a car until now. And I said the same thing about the Zeekr 001. Yamaha really puts out a impressive sound image in the cabin. 13 speakers, including a subwoofer, really crisp mids and highs, and a deep and filling bass, so perfect for my kind of music. Warm sound image, really impressive, especially compared to Volvo's soundbar. That's not bad, but this is another level. The head-up display is 24.3 inch, augmented reality, high brightness. This is the new generation of head-up displays from Zeekr. So it's really crisp and clear and gives you nice 3D or augmented reality directions. In front of the steering wheel, we have a 8.8 inch instrument cluster. And as you all know, the EX30 doesn't have an instrument cluster. To the right, a 14.8 inch central media screen. So 2 fairly big screens paired with a great augmented reality screen on top of the dash. Gives you a really good view as a driver. And whilst talking about the screens, we have the steering wheel. This is a very modern and sleek looking steering wheel. Looks like the steering wheel's in Neo for some parts. The good thing though, compared to the 001, is that this one, the X, has the updated steering wheel with the updated control. So there's no longer any haptic touch buttons. There is proper joysticks on each side and a single button to the outer space of that joystick. You don't need to look down at the steering wheel. You can just use the joysticks and control different things with them. Really nice. To the left you have the controls for the driving aid system. So for instance, left and right is to adjust the distance to the cars in front of you, and upwards and downwards is to increase or decrease the speed of the autopilot. To the right, you have the media controls. Up is volume up, down is volume down. Right is skip song, press it, you mute it. And to the right of the joystick on that side, you have a sub menu that you activate and toggle between on the instrument cluster. The button to the left is the voice command controller. So you press it to activate the voice commands, and the voice commands seems to work fairly good. Very user-friendly steering wheel. This is one of the best layouts I have tried until now. So really great addition here. The stalks in front of the steering wheel to the right works as in Tesla. It's the gear selector. And if you double tap it, you will activate the autopilot. If you single tap it, you will activate the cruise control. The lower parts, underneath the dashboard, you have a very spacious design here. So the midsection consists of a pocket for storing phones and smaller things, maybe your key, a USB-C port putting out 37 watts, and to the right a USB-C port putting out 60 watts for charging laptops, etc. If you continue downwards, as you see, there is open in between the two frontal seats, and you have some storage compartments here with two cup holders, or one if you want. You fold it out, and this one is also removable, so you can remove it if you don't want it, or if you need to clean it. That's a clever design, and it's a fairly big pocket of storage here, and you can close it to keep it a bit more tidy. This car is missing a glove box, so this is more or less instead of the glove box, and it's companioned by fairly big pockets and bottle holders in the door pockets. On top of the armrest there is a built-in Qi charger, so you squeeze in your phone to it. Works really good and supports fairly big phones. This one is possible to open upwards, and that's mostly to be able to access this storage compartment underneath. The door sides is also covered in nice materials, soft touch here at the top, air ventilation for defrosting or defogging the front windows. The opener is digital, so you press it. This acts as a door latch or door opener. Press it once and it pushes out the door. Underneath that you have the normal power window controls. Really nice feel to those. They feel as they are a bit the opposite control, so if you press them frontwards, they actually put down the windows. If you pull them towards you, they close the windows. So it's a bit the other way around, but you get used to it. There is no button here for controlling the child lock functionality. You do that from the screen. As I said, big pockets for storing things like bottles, etc. And there is a hidden door latch here. That's the mechanical latch in case of emergency or in case of that you run out of battery power. So the seats, this is the Privilege seats, so they are powered, and it has a built-in lumbar support. So if you toggle the wheel on the side of the seat, if you toggle it forward, there is a lumbar adjustment functionality. So it's a 2-axis lumbar adjustment, so x-axis and y-axis. And if you toggle the wheel to the other side, that's the massage activation. You can choose the intensity and the different massage programs. Otherwise, they are powered as usual, and you can almost adjust the angle, but only one axis. So this is the maximum amount of thigh support I can get. They're not extendable, but they usually aren't on this size of a car class. So still okay leg support, I would say. Not the best, but all in all, a pleasant driver position. The headrests are not adjustable, so they are fixed and mounted to the backrest. But they are still cushioned and more soft than in my Model Y. Let's have a look at the back seat, and the front seat is adjusted after my driver position, and I'm 193 centimeters tall or 6'4". As you see, I'm almost touching the backrest. Possible to squeeze my feet underneath the front seat even if it's in the lowest position. And when it comes to headroom, there is plenty of it. I mean, 1 fist of extra headroom no problem whatsoever. I can really stretch out and sit as straight as I want, and don't have any issues with that at all. It has the glass roof, the panoramic glass roof. That's, by the way, standard in the Zeekr X. You always get it with a panoramic glass roof. When it comes to the materials as such, it has the same materials as in the front, so the good quality continues. When it comes to the door, it's designed the same way with the same materials as in the front. So this part is soft touch with the integrated pixel LED light or ambient lighting also here at the back. That's nice to see. And you have the nice looking Yamaha tweeter cover here too. One sad thing is this design, it actually covers a lot of the view for the rear passengers. So if you are claustrophobic, this may be a bit disturbing for you. It is almost the same as in the EX30, if I recall it correctly. Otherwise, a really nice design, cushioned armrests, good for resting your arms. And instead of placing the ventilation on the mid console, it's placed here on the B pillars. That's neat, so it's very easy to adjust the airflow after your liking here for the rear passengers. The mid console as such only has one USB-C and one USB-A port and this storage for your phone. Otherwise, a very Spartan design on that one. You have some small pockets, a different design here, but at least possible to store a phone or a cable in those. The seats are comfortable, same materials as in the front. It's lacking a bit of a thigh support, no seat heating at all, and the backrests are well cushioned and supportive. 3 individual headrests, all of them are adjustable height-wise. And here in the middle we have a built-in armrest with 2 adaptive cup holders. This is well cushioned and gives you a nice feel, and it's wide, so it's no problem whatsoever sharing it with your fellow passenger. So before taking this car for a drive, I want to talk about the software. It has really evolved. I keep saying that because I know that over-the-air update is really important. I know that there was a couple of bugs, so software issues with the Zeekr 001. I haven't noticed any specific on this one. It does a lot of chimes and beeps, but all those are possible to turn off. But the software as such, the layout, the navigation, the menus, the settings is fairly easy to navigate in between and to find the right things and settings for you. And there is a lot of functionality, and they are using widgets on top of the desktop for creating shortcuts to the most necessary things. You have this nice view over the car where you can open the boot, fold the mirrors, etc. So there is easy accessible things. There is also the ability of applications, so you can download more applications since this system is based on Android from the beginning. There is a lot of functions related to that. You can connect Android Auto and Apple CarPlay wirelessly. That's always good, and the built-in navigation, at least for me, seems to work fine. I haven't used it that extensively, but for the parts I have used it, it works good. And it really integrates well with the head-up display. So if you've used that one, you will be able to utilize the augmented reality, and that's not available if you use Google Maps, for instance. When it comes to the self-driving capabilities, there is a lot of settings under the sub-menu called Zeekr AD. That's the intelligent driving functions. So you have things like automatic lane change. That's good for such a small car in this price class. Front collision mitigation warnings, rear collision warnings, rear cross traffic alert, emergency braking, door opening warnings, etc. There is a lot of features. When it comes to the charging menu, you can set the charge limit as in a lot of other cars, of course. There is also a nice feature, and that's the battery temperature adjustment. That's the battery preconditioning, if you speak the same language as in the other cars. So battery preconditioning means that you can preheat the battery pack or cool it to the optimal charging temperature before plug it in and do some fast charging. That means that you can optimize the charge curve and minimize the time you wait for the car to get full. That's a new feature, and that's really good because I want to see that in all cars actually. Really enhances the life of a daily EV driver as me. There's also something called vehicle to load. There's a sub-menu for that called power another device. This feature is hardware-wise not active yet, which means that the actual adapter that you plug into the charge port is undergoing tests for the European market. It's in kind of a beta state. There's a lot of light control, so the ambient lighting is controllable. You can change all the colors. You can have this breathing functionality. You can also make it blink or adjust the intensity of the light according to the music. And I know that a lot of you have asked questions about Sentry mode, pet mode, camp mode, etc. And I can say that all that exists and works. For instance, there is something called park and comfort. That's the function for camping. So you can activate that, set it to on, and it will run until you turn it off or until the state of charge hits 20%. You can also limit it by setting a certain set of hours. Up to 8 hours is possible. So that's the camping mode. The other thing is the pet mode, and that's the dog mode. You can leave your pet inside the car and it will keep the cabin running. You have something called rest mode. That's more or less a Zen mode or kind of a charging rest mode or a power nap mode. You activate that, you can activate it for either the passenger or the driver, and it adjusts the seat in a resting position, plays some calming sounds and music, and activates a nice background on the screen, all for your relaxation. The last thing is the Sentry mode. Sentry mode is kind of a surveillance mode monitoring your car. So it uses the sensors and the cameras to sense if someone is getting close, hitting or lurking around your car. Works as in Tesla, for instance. What you need to do is that you need to plug in a USB stick to the USB-C port here to the right on the dash here, and your videos will be saved to that USB-C stick. And you activate it here on the screen, and there is a couple of settings for it. The resolution, for instance, you can choose between 720p or 180p. And you can also set the duration of the segmentation of the videos from 1, 3, or 5 minutes. So there is support for a good Sentry mode, and all the modes you need is present. So that tells me that the software is really evolving and that there is a lot of functions, especially compared to brands that's not Tesla. I mean, they are really working on the software and they are really pushing out functions, and there is a lot to choose from. I think that's enough. Let's take this car for a drive. So let me start with different drive modes. Normally you toggle between the drive modes by your voice. For instance,
hey,
activate sport mode.
setting driving mode to sport.
Yeah, that worked fine. But just for your information, there is 3 different drive modes: comfort, standard, and sport. Now I have activated sport. Whoa, and it's quick. As I said, 3.8 seconds. Over 400 horsepower, 500 newton meters of torque. This is a small but very powerful car, and it's immediate. It's really immediate. It's a fun car to drive. That's sport. And sport is responsive. It gives you all the power immediately without any delay. It is actually not a drive mode. It's more or less a acceleration setting, as the menu says here. So you can also set things like the regenerative braking, the power assisted steering, that's the stiffness of the steering wheel, and if it should be one pedal driving or not. Let us just look through those settings. Let's move back to the standard setting. So now I'm running the car on regenerative braking on high. So there's 2 modes. Region normal, region high. Let's test normal. It's regioning. Normal is, it's normal. I mean, it's not coasting. It's not that bad actually. It's actually fairly strong. When you move it to high, that's aggressive. That's aggressive, but it's still, it comes to a full stop. Because on top of the region, there is something called stop mode. That's a bit complicated to understand, but stop mode is divided into two parts, creep and standstill. I don't like creep because then it's continuous rolling. Let us walk through the different drive modes, or there is no dedicated drive mode. The easiest way to jump between the modes is by using your voice.
Hey,
Set drive mode to sport.
setting driving mode to sport.
Yeah. So it's setting the driving mode to sport, but there is no driving mode called sport. It's a acceleration mode called sport. And there is 3 levels of acceleration: comfort, standard, and sport. The next setting is the regenerative braking, divided into 2 parts, normal and high. At high, it is actually fairly aggressive. It's a strong region. On normal, it's more moderate, but it's still strong considered and compared to other cars. Before this, I actually drove the Porsche Taycan, and that has no regen at all. It's just coasting. So normal on this one is high compared to the Porsche, but I run it on high. And the next setting for regen is called stop mode. Very strange name. It should be called one pedal driving on and off. But here is called stop mode, and there is a setting called creep and another setting called standstill. Creep, as it is in now, with regen high, it's rolling. So it never comes to a full stop. But if you access or activate standstill, which not is active on sport, you need to activate standard or comfort. So activating standstill, and standstill brings the car to a complete stop. Yeah. So standstill, even if it took time that time, let me try that again. So standstill active, it's sloping downwards. It stops. A very smooth stop, that's nice. So there is a one pedal driving, and that's good. That's really good, because most of the cars is unfortunately lacking that function, but not this one. So regen is high, and there is a one pedal driving function. The last setting when it comes to the drive mode settings is the stiffness of the steering wheel, called power assisted steering. Comfort, normal, sport. I also want to have that set to sport. It gets a bit more stiff, but the steering is a bit artificial. You don't get that much of a contact with the road. It's more a levitating feeling, more a gamey feeling compared to some of the other cars on the market, especially if you compare it to my Tesla or the Ford Mach-E, also very dedicated steering. And of course the Porsche Taycan also has that extra touch of road feel in the steering wheel. This one is more numb and more artificial. So the different modes, acceleration modes, let's start with comfort and see how that behaves. From standstill. Flooring it. Okay, so it is clearly not putting out all the power. It is slowly gaining power. So there is no immediate punch. So standard is active. Let me try another acceleration round compared to comfort. Yes, so it picks up much faster Sport gives me a lot more power. So a big difference between Comfort and Standard, for sure. And in Sport, let me try that. Sport Active, standstill. Yeah, so feels like the initial acceleration is the same. What happens is that it's continuous pushing on, even in higher speeds. Standard seems to like slow down after a while, but Sport doesn't. Oh, and now I'm actually starting to get a bit nauseous. And I think the main reason for that is, of course, the acceleration. It's quick. I mean, 3.8 seconds, that's a low number. But the other thing is the suspension. This car is not equipped with any active dampers or an air suspension. It's traditional suspension. Steel coils, traditional dampers. And as a lot of other Chinese brands, it's tuned towards comfort. And it doesn't feel to be able to handle the torque or the power that good. I mean, it's a bit too softly tuned for that. So what happens is that when I floor it, it really leans backwards a lot. I mean, the front axle really lifts and pushes the rear axle downwards. So it's a really big movement inside the cabin. When you accelerate, it's way too soft in that manner. It's way too soft to handle 430 horsepower. But it's comfortable. It's really nice to drive in, especially on highways. I noticed something when I accelerate. I don't know if you hear that sound. Do you hear that? Something is squeaking, both front doors. When I accelerate or decelerate hard, feels like the B-pillars is scratching against the interior soft materials. Gives it a bit of a squeaking sound. I don't know if the body movement is too much or if the stiffness of the car is high enough to be able to handle the torque, or if it's just the materials that is too tightly coupled with the B-pillars. Not sure. Back to the suspension. As I said, too soft. That also goes for the body roll. It's a lot of body roll. You won't be able to drive this car actively. You won't be able to utilize the horsepower in this one. I mean, not without getting nausea or losing control. I mean, it's too soft. It's way too soft. This car actually needs some kind of active dampers to be able to stiffen up the car a bit, because it's too soft for the amount of power it has. I didn't feel this in the Zeekr 001, but of course that has the active dampers that I tested, so probably that's the reason. But you may be fine with that. But if you're fine with that, you will also be fine with going for the long-range rear-wheel drive version, because then you don't have the same amount of power, same amount of torque, but you have a slightly more range. That's just an idea from me. If you don't want to drive actively, go for the rear-wheel drive version, not the Privilege version. Let us try out the suspension on the gravel road here with some potholes and see how it behaves. I'm guessing, but I think it's gonna handle it very nicely because the suspension is so softly tuned that you will just fly over the bumps. The cabin is silent, doesn't have any acoustic glass, but feels well insulated, especially the lower parts of the car. The wheel arches, the battery pack pushes out a lot of sound or noise. So, I mean, it's a very comfortable car. It's a very comfortable car, and that also goes for uneven surfaces. I'm gonna summarize my experience and my view on the Zeekr X. I have been driving the car for a week now, have tried a lot of different things, and have covered a lot of kilometers before recording this video. And as a sum, I would probably pick this one over the Volvo EX30 for a couple of reasons. The biggest reason, though, is the interior. I mean, the interior quality, the interior layout, the materials. It's so much more premium. It's so much more car-y than you get in the Volvo EX30. Without being classic or old school, I think they have managed the balance between technology and comfort in a really good way. I mean, the head-up display, the screens, the instrument cluster you have really makes a big difference. Because, I mean, other things like the motor, the drivetrain, the battery pack is the same between those two cars, but I would pick the Zeekr X. What I'm not sure about, though, is which version I would pick. I would probably go for the long-range version. And that's me, despite being a person that likes a lot of horsepower and performance, because I think it's a bit too softly tuned for that much horsepower. I would have wished for maybe a bit lowered suspension and stiffer dampers to be able to cope with that rough acceleration and avoid that nodding when accelerating, and even more than that, the body roll when taking the corners. It's more a car tuned towards comfort, and therefore I would choose the rear-wheel drive long-range version. It will give you a bit more range, and you'll probably mostly drive it in dense traffic or cities. Then you don't need the all-wheel drive version. And I mean, the equipment with the head-up display, the screens, the seats, you get like everything you need anyway in the rear-wheel drive version. So if you don't miss or really need four-wheel drive, go for rear-wheel drive. You will save some money, you will get some more range, but you will all in all get a really great car. And I think that's all for today. I have tried to cover as much as possible about the Zeekr X. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm soon releasing another video about the Zeekr X, about actual range and consumption, acceleration, noise, and charging. That's a informative and interesting video for you if you are into the market of buying an EV, or especially the Zeekr X. So stay tuned for that one. I put the link up here and in the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe, engage. I really like when you engage. Ask me questions, share your thoughts. Do you like this car? Or if you don't like it, tell me why you don't like it. Let us have a nice discussion, and feel free to ask me questions. Stay electric. Thank you for watching. Speak to you soon.